Today's interview is with Kyle Stevie. Kyle's an investor out of Covington, Kentucky. This is where I own one of my properties. So it's a fun conversation with him. In this interview, he talks about how and why he invests in startups and the startups that he's been involved with. It's a cool concept, and it kind of reflects his investing technique. He's since then invested in two properties in Covington. Both were, as he calls them, train wrecks, right? And he took those train wrecks and sent them around. And one is an ongoing project, but really cool story and really cool projects that he's involved in. So stick around for all of that. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multi-family real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Kyle Stevie. Hey Kyle, how you doing, man?
Doing fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm doing awesome. You're in Covington, Kentucky. We were talking just beforehand because I have an investment property and I'm really interested in Covington. You were giving me some inside scoop of what's going down in Covington, so I appreciate it, man. You were saying do you guys still have a ton of snow there?
Yeah, we'll have a ton of snow, I guess, until the beginning of this week, and then it'll start melting. But it was pretty rough. We had nothing like what Dallas and the South got. At least we have salt and we were prepared.
Yeah, and running water and electricity, right? It's been crazy.
Well, my full-time job is I'm a freight broker, and everything that my world got rocked professionally because it was like rescheduling appointments and people not making deliveries. It was awful. The whole week's been just a pain in the ass.
Being a freight broker, what does that entail? Being a freight broker?
So basically, my customer will say, I got a load of whatever. I got to get from New York to Los Angeles. What can you do it for? And then you give them a rate, and then you negotiate with carriers to do it for less and try to make a commission off of it.
Okay. You work for a company, or you have your own company?
No, I work for a company called Total Quality Logistics.
Okay.
So when I started, I started in 2003 with them, and we were at 30 million in sales. And this 2020, we just did 4 billion in sales.
Oh,
it's enormous. It turned into a Goliath.
Yeah, like all down to you, obviously.
Well, I mean, not so much my sales. They use me on the billboards because I'm not such a good-looking person.
Marketing. They use you for your marketing.
Attract all the top talent.
I get that. Well, hey, man, we kind of got off topic a little bit. I usually ask the guests to introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about themselves. So maybe we can jump in there right now if you can sort of introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. So you know what my day job is, but I guess my superhero role is I do some real estate investing on the side. I do startup investing as well. I have a couple properties here in Northern Kentucky. Nothing crazy. I got invested in the Bitcoin mining facility, so I guess that's kind of real estate in Rockdale, Texas. And yeah, basically that's where I'm at right now. We have this building in Covington that we're going to talk about, and once that's done, I think we'll be in a better position to kind of take a leap forward and start getting more aggressive around here.
Yeah, very cool. So you own real estate in the Bitcoin mining world. What Bitcoin is like another language to me. I don't understand it at all. So maybe can you explain to me and some other people that maybe don't understand what that means?
Well, I don't own the real estate. I'm invested in a group that is, I guess, leasing space, for lack of a better term. So a company called Windstone went into Rockdale and they acquired the Alcoa. Alcoa had a aluminum plant in the city, and then they just left. So Rockdale's been pretty destitute, I guess, for the last few years, trying to find another industry to replace it. And so what these guys did is they got the plant, and then they did all the infrastructure, and they brought in the Bitcoin miners, which are like hard drives that just run this try to crack an algorithm to prove it's called mining of Bitcoin. Now, that's about the extent of what I know about it. But I do know you have to do it with economy of scale to really make money with it. And then what we have is we're leasing a small space, and we still have like 8,900 miners, which is outrageous. You should see this place. They have drone footage of it. It is massive. So basically, these hard drives, they just whip through this algorithm, try to prove a math problem, and then as long as 51% of all the nodes across the world agree that it's correct, it gets put into the block. Once a block's closed, you get 6.25 Bitcoin for closing it. And then once you have that, then you sell it to an exchange and get money back from it.
This is so crazy, man. Like 2021, like it's just so nuts. So these things are just computers that are running all day, or is there people programming each and every hard drive?
No, they're running. They're already programmed. They're running all day, and if that's why what was important about this place was they had an energy contract that was ridiculous, and they have liquid cooling because it gets hot as hell there. So they had an energy competitive advantage, and that's what I liked about it. And then we just got lucky with the timing. So I think we started in Bitcoin was at $10,000 when they started mining, and it just broke 55,000 today. So it's like, all right, start paying out. Well, they had to close for 3 days though because all the froth, all the freeze down there. But they closed prior to the storm coming, so they didn't have any catastrophic forced shutdowns.
Wow. How did you start investing in something like that? You said you were investing in startups, right? But how do you come across something like that?
Adam Kaler, my co-host on my podcast, Side Hustle City, that you were on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he
is an entrepreneurial whiz. People throw stuff at him all the time because of his background with starting Reversed Out, and then obviously Loop being the big one since they sold to Zilla for 9 figures. So he gets introduced to everything, and when he threw that at us, and we saw the energy. What the energy contract was for 10 years, and it was like a no-brainer. It was pretty awesome.
How does something like that work though from an investment standpoint? You just put your money and then in 5 years time they say we'll start making money, or that how do you make money with something like that? Is there a cash flow with it? Is there just when they sell?
No, it's cash flowing. So they give out quarterly dividends. Basically, it depends what stage you're at. So we've had a couple thrown our way that are still, and one group still had to buy the property, which is always, you never know if it's going to happen or not. So you got to put money in, and then you got to have them hold it in escrow. It's just, to me, I'm not a big escrow fan. This one, they had the pads all laid, all the concrete was laid, the connections to the grid that was on site. So they have a power grid on site. Had already been made. The steel facility was, almost all of them were made. So we got in, they were about, I think we had to have our money in July, and they were operational by the beginning of October. So there was nothing with red tape that, they didn't have to go to the municipality and get approval for this or licensing for this, for that. They were ready to rock. They just needed the equipment to come in and finish building out. And they did that really quickly and got up and running.
Wow.
So basically the way the returns work is once they mine, they'll sell it to Coinbase, or I don't know who their exchange is, or it's Gemini or whoever, and then they get the money, they get fiat, cash for it, and then they pay us back every quarter.
Interesting. And the returns pretty good. I'm not asking for a dollar amount or maybe a percentage wise or something, or just are you pretty happy with the returns?
Well, the predictions were when we went into this at $6,000 of Bitcoin, we were going 1x every year. So it's pretty damn good. It was it's amazing. So like I said, it was worth rolling the dice on.
Yeah. Well, how many other startups have you invested in?
I invested in Atoms with C-Prop, and they had a good thing going with that one. And then there's a big struggle, the big Trump versus China trade tariff and battle and all that crap that went along with that. So the Chinese investing in real estate in the U.S. is much harder for them to get their money out of the country and into the U.S. Real estate. Obviously they were still a huge part of it, but it wasn't as easy. So that's still on the back burner. And then I invested in another company called 10XTS, and they do, it's a fintech company. And so they are about, I would say conservatively 12 to 18 months away from being like a household name. I think they're going to be huge. That's what I mean.
What goes into, I guess what I was trying to get to is how do you analyze a startup, right? Because a startup it is what it is, right? It's a startup. You don't know where things are going to go. usually I imagine there's no cash flow in place, as you know, the company isn't built up and the business isn't there yet. Is it just, do you have a business sense about everything that, you know, an understanding that? How do you analyze it?
Just like I did with my real estate. I mean, this will roll right into what I've done with real estate. It's always been like a gut instinct. So with both of these that I've invested in, I knew the guy, I knew the operators, I knew the people that were starting it, I knew the founders. 10XTS, their founder is Michael Hiles. He won a Smithsonian Award for putting the first judicial opinion on the internet. Talking like 1992, first judicial opinion that was recognized as precedent that you could cite to without having to go to the library and pull the Westlaw and all that other stuff. He actually, you know, he got that approved. He's been programming since the 70s. The whole team's ridiculous. They got 2 guys from the military. They have former Ohio legislator. So they were lock, stock, ready to go. He was already he was already at a congressional library to discuss small business and blockchain capabilities. So he's an expert in the field. Adam's already exited like 2 or 3 companies, and he's a no bullshit. I'm sorry, I don't know if I was allowed to say that word or not, but he's a no nonsense kind of guy when it comes to telling the truth. So I felt comfortable with him. Now, how would I, if I didn't know the operators and I didn't know the team personally, your guess is as good as mine, man. I would be lost, because we go to a lot of pitches just because of, and I've never pulled the trigger because I've always thought, I don't know. I don't really know this person well enough to know that they've got the ability to pivot at a crucial time when maybe their business plan isn't going the way it should go, and there's possibly another opportunity that they're letting bypass because they're being stubborn. So that's something that if any of these ever hit big, it would be real estate for my passive investment, you know, and then I would like to jump into like the venture stuff, but I would really need to learn. I mean, the one good thing about 10XTS's team being being just so damn smart and being experts is I now know who to contact about potential investments. And I also know who to ask questions to about how are you, you know, analyzing this deal? How are you doing your due diligence on this? Just like you guys would, just like we do with, you know, Joe's Fairless's program, you know, so that they could, Theo has that great pro forma. He has a great underwriting program that's accessible to everybody. That's the same type of mentality, same type of deal. Because I mean, it's not like you knew exactly what you were doing when you first looked at a building, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and you use other people, right? Just like you said, you use other people's skill set and other people's knowledge to kind of get it. Seems like though the startup space is a little bit more of a hit or miss thing, right? You invest in 10 and 1 or 2 come through, but what the 1 or 2 come through usually come through like screaming hot, right? Would that be accurate?
So I'm basically trying to make the impossible happen and 1 out of 2 hit, but I don't know. I feel really good about it. Like I said, if it wouldn't have been about the team, if I wouldn't have known the team and I just had just knew their idea, I don't know that I would have invested. Yeah. But they're a team of superstars. If you go to their bios.
So there's not been one that you could have invested that's gone to the moon yet that you're like, I should have put money in that one.
No, because I got such a late start to all this. Because to me, all this happened at the same time. So I guess it was multiple streams of income or whatever it was. I was reading about that, and they linked and they said, if you haven't read this book yet, read it. And that was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is everybody in the world's read. So I read that and I was like, man, I am really, really missing my opportunities here. I'm being like, my job is great and the company's fantastic, but I don't know it's going to be there forever. So I've got to do something to, you know, make sure that I have other income coming in, because I do have a law degree, but I don't use it. So it would take me forever to build my practice up. My brothers-in-law are defense attorneys in Covington, and they have a great practice going now, but it took them a good solid 2 to 3 years to get off the ground. And they're way more intelligent than I am. So I'm thinking if it takes them 2 to 3, it's going to take me 5 to 6. So I needed something on the side, or, you know, something that potentially could just replace my income and I wouldn't have to do that. And I could go do something I want to do, like coach football or something interesting.
You mean football or soccer? Because I know your sons play.
I would love to coach American football because I played that through college. But soccer, I would love to coach, but I don't want to. They have so many damn. They got like so many certifications to get to certain levels. It's like so much time.
Yeah,
they gotta get there. I don't. What do they call it in the United Kingdom, UK? All the credentials, the badges.
There's, you've got your C license, your B license, your A license, and I think there's stuff before that as well. Yeah, like I think to be a coach in the Premier League, I think you need to have your A license or even your UEFA license. I think there's a lot to go through. I think for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it'd be awesome to coach it, like Liverpool as an assistant coach or something. But it would be awesome to be an assistant coach with the Bengals too.
What so you said you talked there about real estate that you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. What was your first investment?
My first investment was the first successful investment was I invested in a 2-family in Covington, more towards the south side of the city, and I bought it for $65. I bought it for $60. I bought it from a friend. I had him put $5,000 of the purchase price into repairs that needed to be done, beyond what I was just stipulating. And then it was I think I was getting $750 a unit, and I was paying water, but they were paying electric. It was nice, but eventually it was going. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How do you find that deal? MLS or wholesaler or friends?
It was my friends.
Okay,
but it was on Facebook. His cousin was a realtor and had listed it, and I just reached out directly to my friend because I knew the realtor too, so I knew he was going to get cut. It was like lifelong friends, and he said he's got it listed for this, but I would take this. I just want to get rid of it.
That's great.
Done. And I got rid of that a couple of years ago. I sold it for $105. Some $40,000 profit in 3 years of holding it.
Yeah. Do you wish you still had it? Do you think it would be cash flow even crazy? I guess 40,000 is a good amount to make on it as well, right?
Yeah. It was going to need a new roof because it was a slate roof, and the foundation was bowing a little bit.
Wait, a slate roof?
Yeah.
You have those there? I know in the UK, all roofs are slate roofs. It's kind of crazy. Like my hometown, every single roof is a slate roof. And I worked in construction for a little bit, and we replaced so many slate roofs, but I never see that here. So it's actually slate roofs.
Yeah, it's down on Holman. When you're in town, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, I gotta go check it out. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's kind of
there's a few places that still have the slate roofs,
but it's a serious pain in the ass to replace, right? That's an expensive fix, I'm sure. A new slate roof.
Oh yeah, I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want any part of that, and I didn't want any part of the foundation. So I was like, all right, time to get out. I got a guy that was a kid that was really hungry, and he bought it, and I guess he's got to be doing well with it because I see the valuation of it from Zillow coming. Like I forgot to remove myself as the owner or whatever, and I keep getting email updates about. So I think he's got it up to 110, 115.
Okay.
So
I never check those things. They'll property. I have the same thing. I get property from them. I'm like, no, don't click on it because I sold like a couple of years back. I don't want to see what this is worth because I made profit on all mine, so I was happy with it what it is. But still, yeah. I know for an absolute fact that 2 properties here in Vegas and 1 just outside Tampa. They're all probably I sold the last one 2 years ago, so I'm sure they all went up a good amount. So I don't never check that.
Well, you keep hearing that the end is near, the end is near, the end is near, and so you're like, all right, well, I got out, I got a pretty decent profit, and then you're like, whoa, time.
Yeah, same thing with me. Yeah, I took the chips off the table. Yeah, but I was happy. I made a profit. I was happier taking that profit off the table than. Say, had I made another, I would be a lot more unhappy if I'd lost that equity that I had than what I would have made. You know what I mean? The negative is more painful than the positive to me a lot of times. So I was, I'm okay with what I did. So what was your second property?
So while I actually bought that two family because I didn't think that my original offers were going to go through on these 2 buildings I did in Fort Thomas, and Fort Thomas is probably 3 to 5 miles, depending where you're at in Fort Thomas, from where your properties are in Covington. It's where the Ohio River will wrap around, and it's towards the 275 bridge, if anybody's familiar with Cincinnati. So these two properties were they were dilapidated. I mean, they had been abandoned basically for 5 years because the woman who owned them died. So they're tied up in probate. They they finally put it up for sale 5 years after her death. She had no heirs. She had no will. It was just, was going to go. And but when you negotiate with a property that's in probate, you have a, attorney that represents the estate. They have to go to court every time you offer. Of course, the court rejects it because they look at PVA values. I don't know what the hell they look at. They sure as hell didn't walk through the building to know what it was truly valued at. So the two buildings together, right side by side, were listed originally at $400,000 or something stupid like that. And anybody who's ever been up that part of Fort Thomas knows those buildings were terrible. So we offered them $95,000 for both. Went to the probate court said nope, and then we started again. We sent them another one. All right, we'll give you $115,000. Same thing. Nope. $125,000. Nope. I mean, every time this happens, it restarts the clock. It's like 3 to 4 weeks to hear back. So finally, we got them to agree $155,000 for both buildings, which was awesome. But we didn't see the buildings with the lights on because the electricity had been turned off. We had no idea what plumbing worked, what plumbing didn't work, what plumbing was even there because they'd been winterized. It was just like a complete, just like when I do startups, it's just complete like gut feelings, shot in the dark type thing, which is not the best way to do startups. But got to know your team. And I had my neighbor was going to be our contractor, and he felt he could get it done for a certain amount of, whatever his profit, whatever his budget was. We finally got an agreement for the $155,000, like I said, and they were about a week away from closing and found out that they didn't have clear title, that she had like 7 great nieces and nephews that were spread out across the country. And that's an easy fix because of the attorney representing the estate. All he has to do is send a publication to their last known address, like a publication, their last known address. So if you live in St. Petersburg, was it the Sentinel down there or something like that? Or Tampa, whatever newspaper for Tampa.
Oh yeah, the Sentinel, yeah. And
you just put a blurb in there that this property is being sold in Fort Thomas, Kentucky. It was part of this estate. If you're so and so, like you got 21 days to dispute the sale, or else the matter's closed. And he wouldn't do it because there had been another house that was part of that same estate, and that house closed clean. And that was after some guy put like $700,000 worth of work into this thing. It's a massive house. It's beautiful. I mean, he did a really good job on it. But I knew the guy who bought the house. And I asked him, I said, how did you get clear title on your house when we couldn't get clear title on these 2 buildings? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, the title attorney said that there are people that can contest the sale of this. So he was freaking out because he has this brand new, basically, completely updated house. He didn't want his sale contested with some great niece or nephew happens to be close, and they drive by and they're like, oh, I want this one. Yeah. We're going to sell this later. So we finally got that worked out. The attorney never really did work with us. Like I saw him driving down and this was like a 6-week process. I saw him driving down the street about week 4. As I was driving down the street, he was walking by with 2, coworkers, and he went to a restaurant. And I thought to myself, this might be the only time I ever get to meet this guy. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to confront him. And I went a block, and I thought, no, I better not. That would be rude and disrespectful. And then by the 3rd block, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm never going to be able to get this opportunity again. So I turn around, and like I said before, I'm an attorney, but I look like a bum. Like I don't ever dress up because I don't ever need to. So I park the car, I walk into the restaurant. I'm in shorts. Might have just got finished working out. I might have been disgusting. I can't remember. I wasn't looking good. I'll say that. And I introduced myself to him, and he said, well, the other building went clear, and he tried to do all this legal jargon. And I said, look, I've got the same type of degree you have. I need you to do what you know you need to do and quit being a jerk. We got teams that were like withholding from other jobs because all we got to do is get this done. And in 3 weeks, we can start working on this building. Or he was just hemming and hawing. And he had a fake, like, you're not really familiar with this being from Wales, but the country accent in the US, like, it's thick till you get to like the middle of Florida from where I am, but his was fake. There's this stereotype of a country lawyer with that thick country accent, and they seem so kindly, and they have a lot of they got a great temperament. They're patient, but in the back of their mind, they're manipulating the hell out of you. And everybody's seen those movies and that stereotype. This guy thought he was living that stereotype. So I was like, it took everything in my power not to just like tell him off there. But finally it got taken care of. We got the buildings cleared and we worked on those. And I sent you those articles. I don't know if you got a chance to read them, but it was horrible. It was like 20 dumpsters. Everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong. And we wound up like $100,000 over budget on it. Yeah, it was like we got in at 2016, so 2017, the cost of everything we needed seemed to skyrocket. Like if we needed lumber, the lumber skyrocketed. If we needed, electric, whatever it was, for whatever reason, everything got pretty expensive. So it was a learning experience for sure, but it worked out pretty well. I mean, we have an ice cream shop in the one building with 2 apartments above that, and then we have this farm to table, fresh food restaurant, and it's called the Grassroots and Vine, and they build a nice patio and they have live music. And it's been really nice little community cornerstone along with the other restaurants that were in this section of the city. So it's pretty cool. I mean, at least I guess I did my public works, my public service with that one.
I was hoping you said that you dragged him out back and beat the what out of him. Yeah.
I don't think
I wasn't hoping. Actually, I'm not a violent guy because people get the wrong impression. But I'm joking.
I don't like. It was one of those guys that you would have gotten in front of him and you would have known, you would have just felt the cowardice coming through his body.
Yeah. To
where his point's like, I just feel bad for you, man. Like, there's just he was just so slimy and fake. I didn't want any part of it.
What with that building, why did you guys decide to make it an ice cream parlor? Well, you could have done anything you wanted with it. Was there any market research? Was there any like need for that, or is it you just really like ice cream? You're like, let me get
actually, ice cream shops scared the hell out of me because that's what 3 months out of the year or 4 months out of the year, nobody's gonna really go in there. Yeah. Before their buildings were even complete, the purchase was completed because it was being held up. We call it the Renaissance Committee in Fort Thomas, the business development group, said that they had a guy named, I won't say his name because he kind of took this over, but it was an ice cream shop that was interested. And so we were like in negotiations with him before we even bought the buildings. And then that drug on forever. It was horrible. He wouldn't commit to this. And then he wanted that. We built the bathroom before we even had a lease signed because he was so gung-ho about being there. And then he didn't like this, or he wanted that. And then finally in May of, what year was that? 2017, 2018, 2017. I said, look, this is what it's going to be. I said, either sign the lease with what do we have here? Because we've already incorporated 70% of the red lines that you've wanted. Or, just leave, shit or get off the pot. And so he said, well, if these are the terms, then I can't accept it. Why'd you waste everybody's time? And we were having the same issue with the other building. There was going to be a kind of a similar theme to what it is right now. And it was the same deal, just a bunch of tire kicking. So finally we just said, screw it, we're done. We're starting fresh, which sucked because luckily the apartments were finished. So we were making our mortgage payment. But it was just like, Jesus, man, that was the hard part. Like, I know this is a multifamily investment podcast, but for the commercial part, like it's so much easier to do commercial when the tenants are in because they take care of everything maintenance wise. But it's way more difficult getting people in there, obviously, because it requires a business to come in of some sort and a business to stay there. And the size of our buildings, we're going to have a small business. You never know what you're going to get when you have a small business. I mean, 50% of them or 70, 60% of them close within their first year. So it's always rolling the dice.
Yeah.
But for the long story short, so the ice cream shop was just because we've been negotiating with an ice cream, and the buildings were built because there was Fort Thomas was an actual military base. So they had built this whole section of, we call it the Midway District, of these buildings, same thing, storefront, and then apartments up top to accommodate the soldiers. And you walked in it and it looked like a 1920s ice cream shop. So, I mean, it's still running up, it's still going today. They just had new ownership come in and people up here love it.
So you rent out that space, you have someone else, it's not your own ice cream shop or
oh yeah, God no.
Oh, okay.
I don't want any part of being a restaurateur. No. I don't, that's just too much math.
Yeah. Well, man, tell us about there was the next project, the one that you mentioned, the one that you guys are kind of working on now, or did you have something
else? The one in Covington?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's this building in Covington that my cousin, one of my partners in Sparring Capital had his eye on his whole life. His grandpa was an obstetrician. His family's always kind of been big in the business side of Covington. And even as a little kid, he would just drive past the building and he loved it. He always thought he was going to own it. And we just happened to be friends with an architect who was working with the owner of the building. And the owner of the building said, "Hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy this?" Because he was going to sell the building because he was expanding one of his buildings on the same street. And he wanted to take advantage of the opportunity zone fund money for the tax break. And the architect came to Joe and said, "Hey, do you know," because Joe's a realtor, he said, "Do you know anybody who wants this building?" And Joe's like, "Yeah, I do." So we got the deal together. We actually, I don't even know our attorney was awesome. He only charged us $15,000 for all the headache and mental gymnastics he had to do to be able to get this deal done. So basically we had 5 shares. Joe got one. Our architect and our general contractor split a share. We have one person's got the 3rd share. A group of 3 has the 4th share, and then I guess quote unquote syndicated the 5th share with Sparring Capital, where we brought in limited partners, for 8% return, and then they get part of the upside for the 5th share, which is not the ideal way to do it, but it was the way we needed to get it done to get the building done. And so it's a bank on the 1st floor. It's a Republic Bank. And it was all office through 6 floors, and the 7th floor is, we call it the 7th floor, but it's a roof. And we're going to put a rooftop bar and restaurant up there. The best part about that job is I've never seen an elevator be put in an existing building before. So that's been really interesting to watch. Because
you were telling me that before. Yeah, tell me all about that. What does that entail? What does that look like? What are things that people would have no idea about putting an elevator in that you've learned?
Well, this is what's like. I don't know if there's other sections of the country like this. I'm sure there are, but everybody seems to be, and this is terrible to say, but everybody seems to be related in Northern Kentucky. Like it's always like 1 degree of separation from another person. So my aunt's boyfriend owned an elevator service company. And the group that we bought the building from, he had serviced all their buildings. So he knew exactly what we were looking at with that elevator. So I asked him, I said, he goes, "You can't do a restaurant without that being ADA compliant." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "What do you think it would cost for us to renovate that? Tear out the shaft, take out the car, take it all the way up to the roof, put the machine room," because the machine room was on the roof, and putting it in the basement. He gave us the number. We've been pretty close to it. That helped. Like, it's a huge expense to take out an existing elevator shaft and then widen, because you got to cut into all the floor supports. You got to you got to stabilize 6 floors worth of floor space, and then you got to build out this big ass shaft so that a ADA compliant elevator car can go in it. And then you're taking it to the roof. So then you got to cut a big ass hole in the roof. You got to cinder block everything up top there, so you have a landing. It's been, I don't know. I wish I could just find a deal where it's like, all right, we got this property management group and they're going to fix these 20 apartments this quarter. and then we're going to rent them out for a premium. And then these 17 units, their leases are expiring, so we're going to renovate those, and it's cash flowing the whole time. I've never had the luxury of getting anything like that yet.
Yeah, but I think what it is you're attracted to that, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You like startups, right? Which it has that risk and kind of that, that future upside. But I think it's an interesting project, and I think it seems we've only met the other day, right? And it just seems to me that you're attracted to that, which is great, right? This is the cool thing about real estate. If you like boring and simple real estate, you can invest that, or if you like yourself, you like interesting projects, you can go after that, right?
Yeah, I like how you said it. You're attracted to that. Like I'm attracted to train wrecks. I'm looking around, making sure my wife's not around.
Yeah, let's not show us the recording, but no, I just mean you like interesting things, right? There's stuff that need work and that need developing and that have a lot of upside and that there's nothing wrong with buying a multifamily property that you just go in and renovate the units and you increase the rents and you lower the expenses and increase the NOI and everyone profits from that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But there's also something cool about taking something that was something different and making it into something like that, right? And seeing, I'm sure once this project will be over, it'll be really cool to see from where it was to where it is, right?
Oh, we took the facade, they had like this faux marble facade, like I think 1930s, just 1940s, 50s actually. They covered up all the exterior. And so we took that off and we put in new windows. And just with the new windows, the difference is just ridiculous. Once we get that rooftop bar, and if one guy wants to do a restaurant up there, we haven't really gotten as far as I'd like yet with the negotiations to say that that's what we're going to do, because it's like $80,000 more in the build out. So we got to do more with the I-beams aren't exactly uniform up there. So we would have to put another I-beam up and all this other crap that would go along with making sure that it can support the pound per square inch, whatever we got to do. But once that happens, I think that it's going to be, people are going to want to be there. I mean, it's not going to be like a live, work, play where people stay there, but it's going to be a work, play. And there's a ton of apartments near that are popping up every day in Covington for people to live right by it.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't listening, how would you describe Covington? Covington's kind of like, we call it the Brooklyn of the Midwest, but how would you describe it?
I don't know. It's a cool little place. I think it's up and coming, right? Seems to me that's what I was attracted by it. Like I don't know it as extensively as you. I know where my properties and I know that area. Madison Avenue is one of the main areas there. You got Hotel Covington, which is, I don't know how many millions that they spent, fixing up that place and making it is really, really nice, I think. It seems like it's got a lot of potential, right? A lot of upside. Would you not agree?
Oh yeah, and you're along the Ohio, directly across from Cincinnati.
Yeah. So 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes from downtown, right? So even almost walkable from the right areas of Covington.
Yeah, as you go north on Madison, you don't see the river, and it just looks like it keeps going for miles. It's how it lines up with whatever street that is in Cincinnati. It's pretty cool. I like it. I mean, I was always more of a Newport guy because that's where I grew up, but the Covington, I've come to really appreciate what the city's trying to do there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, out of interest, what are the sort of numbers on this property? Like, what did you buy it? What are you guys putting into it?
We bought it for $2 million. I think we have 2.25 allotted for fixing it up, and we're trying to lease it out. It's 4,200 square feet per floor, and I think we want to get $15.50 triple net, but with Corona happening, and I mean, it's the perfect place for companies with low overhead, where their employees they're mid-size and they don't need much office space, but they need a place for people to come and meet up quarterly or weekly or whatever. So it fits a niche that I think is starting to develop, where a lot of these places that are in bad leases because they either had to lay off a lot of people or they found it more productive that people work from home. I think that they'll like this better. I mean, we have parking attached to it, and it's got all the things you want. I mean, you're on one of the busiest streets in all of Kentucky, in terms of finance and commerce and money spent. So it's a prime location. It's just a matter of getting that elevator done.
Right. How long has that been like the biggest project of all out of everything?
Oh, easily. I mean, without the elevator, all it would have taken was just a demo group, and then we would have had to put in new. Maybe I don't even know if we needed new electric service. We budgeted for having to need a new electric service, but I'm not sure what they wound up saying. I know that we did a lot of new plumbing. We were moving the bathrooms around anyway, so we were just whatever cast iron stuff was still there, we got it out. That wasn't too bad. We knew we were going to do that, and we had to do some new systems in terms of HVAC. So, but I mean, that shit. That's nothing compared to taking an elevator out and putting an elevator in.
Yeah, that's crazy. The bottom floor is a bank. It was a bank. What is it? What have you done? You said it was bank, office. It's
It's Republic. They're still operating.
Oh, so the bank is still open? You said guys they pay you a lease, so that they have a lease for you guys. Okay.
The building's always been a bank for some reason. I guess just because of where it's located. But we have 3 vaults, like big vaults in the basement, like old school vaults.
Are they full?
They had no, but I mean, I know for history dorks like myself, we still have like deposit slips from 1955, 1956 in this vault. It's crazy. So whatever bank it was, they didn't protect their customers' information at all at that point. But now, I mean, those people are probably long gone. It's just really cool. I had a guy looking that wanted to do the rooftop bar, and he had, I don't know, out of desperation, because he seemed like he was walking away. I said, have we shown you our vaults yet? And he said, no. So we went down, he looked at the vault and I said, now, what do you think about this for like private tastings for your bourbon? And he thought it was awesome because he was a big bourbon bar owner around here. And I think that those vaults are going to play a big part in the character of the building, and how they do, I have no idea, but they're just really cool. I mean, they're huge.
How big are we talking? Like restaurant size each vault, or
like a true bank vault? Probably. So the one is like a U shape, and it's probably, I would say, 15 feet wide at its widest by about 10 feet deep. So in the one part of the U, you got probably 8 feet, and then you got 2 feet of wall, and then you got whatever's left over on the other side. And then there's another one that's just a square, and it's probably about 15 by 15. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah. I feel like you can do something, especially with what you guys are doing there, right? The rooftop bar. There must be something unique that you guys can do that. That's
I think that whoever becomes a restaurant owner, I think they'll use that for something neat down there.
Yeah.
Because you gotta take the back way. You can't. There's no real easy way to access it. So it's kind of like a speakeasy from back in the day of Prohibition.
Yeah, it's one thing to buy a multifamily property, right? Buy 200 units or something, which is pretty cool in itself. But to buy a building with massive, like old school vaults, like that's cool in itself, man.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have the cash flow of the 200 units, but it's a better story to talk about the vaults.
When are you hoping to have this project finished by?
We should have the elevators finished by. The elevator should be done. Well, because we had the weather, so we weren't able to build the top. Once we get the brick laid and everything set up top on the roof, we can start doing the mechanical part of it. Then we got to run a bunch of tests with an engineer. Then we got to get the car engineer. I'd say the beginning of April we'll be done. And then I think that'll make it a lot easier to lease the rest of the spaces. Because right now we've had a lot of people look, because on one of our friends on is can't remember. I cannot remember this group that saved my life. It's a huge group too, but they gave us some data of people that had clicked on it. We've had quite a few that are like over 20 looks already. So they must be getting close to their negotiations for their leases, or they're just growing and they need a place to go. I don't know, but we've tried to contact them, but without elevator, a lot of them can't, you know how it is, they just can't visualize what it's going to look like. Even with how awesome, and I sent you the renderings, how awesome the renderings are, the future projections of what it's going to look like through our architect, they can't grasp it. But we have, as of right now, we're going to keep the 5th floor co-working space, just so we get some cash rolling in. And if somebody wants that 5th floor to go along with the 6th floor, then we can move the co-working spaces down to the 2nd floor. That's kind of what we're looking at, because the 5th floor already has offices, so we didn't demo that. We just kept them up in case we needed to rent them out.
And your goal is to hold this long term, or is it to exit and sell to someone else?
Well, the goal is, and depending on what happens with interest rates, the goal is to refinance in 5 years, 5 to 7 years, and then we want to buy out our Spartan capital investors, give them a good return, and then we would then hold the property. We would hold a share as Spartan capital until we want to get rid of the building, because we live there, and we're not going to find a building in a better location. So as long as we got the tenants, we're going to be quite all right. And it's not like we're asking anything crazy. $15.50 a square foot for Class A commercials. It's pretty fair, I would say.
Yeah. So do you all your eyes on and efforts on this project? Did you have anything else lined up? Do you have any?
We have another project lined up in Covington. I say lined up because we've talked about it and we know who we need to talk to. We haven't started negotiations, so that's about as lined up as it is. But that'll be a huge development project once we get this thing up and running. But it's going to take a lot of finagling, a lot of diplomacy to make it happen.
Sounds like something I need to get you back in the future to talk about in a future episode.
Oh yeah, well if it goes the way it's supposed to go, we'll need some funds, and I'll be happy to pass it on with your new group and see what you guys think about it.
Yeah,
it won't be instant money. There won't be instant cash flow, but it'd be a cool project to be part of.
Yeah. You like cool projects, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
No, Barry, I love train wrecks.
It's how you frame it, right? You can call it a train wreck, or you can call it something exciting and new and innovative, So I prefer to go that route. Man, this is interesting. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time.
No problem.
This is really interesting to explain all that you've done, and especially me having an eye on Covington as well. I think it's a cool little place. There's a lot of upside, but don't go invest there, by the way. Leave all the properties to me and Kyle. But it's a cool place. It's a cool place nonetheless. But man, as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling-related real estate questions. And when I was on your show, you told me that you used to be a little bit of a wrestling fan back in the day. So this should be easy for you. The first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
What would my wrestling name be?
Yeah.
First, I got to mention this because my brothers made sure I mentioned this, because, like I told you, my dad used to have an office right by where all the wrestlers got their cars, if your Ric Flair was a limousine.
Yeah.
So when I was a young kid, we got to meet every wrestler you could ever meet. Like, got to meet Hulk Hogan in 1991 or 92, whatever year that was. And at that time, to me, there was no bigger athlete in the world. Michael Jordan could take a leap. I couldn't care less. It was like Hulk Hogan, and he talked to us forever. So it was amazing. So we have a lot of cool experiences with the wrestling. So with that said, my favorite time frame was the 90s. So I have to do, and not the Attitude Era, because I wouldn't be a good trash talker. So I would have to be like one of those guys with the goofy last names. And then the gaudy colors and all that other, the family fun period.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's probably Stevie Wonderful.
Okay, that's awesome. I like that, Stevie Wonderful. So every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
Special move with real estate?
Yeah.
Find the train wrecks and love them.
No, you got an eye. Let's move it around. You got an eye for what other people can't see. That's what I would say. And that's what I would see. Like, you have a vision that a lot of people, me included, probably couldn't see these properties and these projects. You know what I mean? To see and to follow them through and to make them into what they are is a skill, a huge skill, I think. You're downplaying your skills, I think, man.
Well, we'll call that skill the train wreck.
Okay, so that's your special move, the train wreck. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken?
Oh, when I found out that we were $100,000 over budget on a $300,000 project that built those buildings at Fort Thomas.
Yeah.
It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just, it was what it was. And when I found out about that, I remember I was watching the Bengals play the Steelers, and the Steelers always seem to make the Bengals beat themselves. And I just remember it was like, I couldn't breathe when I heard it. I didn't sleep for a while. So that was the toughest one.
Was there anything you could have done looking back?
Yeah, like seeing the building with the lights on. No, there was so much stuff that was unhidden. That was hidden that I wish would have been unhidden. We had different things with city code that was different than state code. So we had fire block the ceiling on the first floor because we thought we might have to put a restaurant where the ice cream shop is. Well, in our city, you have to fire block both floors. So not only are you buying fire block, but we were going to refinish the floor of the second floor. And then we had to wind up buying new flooring for the whole damn thing. So, and then the support, these two support beams. The first one we uncovered was steel. It's circular. That's why we were also thinking about the ice cream shop, the circular steel beam, like you see with the checkerboard floors, like in 1900 photos from New York City that are in black and white. It would look like it fit like that. But the back one wasn't steel, it was wood, and it bowed, and then it was like, it was everything, like I said, everything that could have gone wrong with that went wrong with that. The fact that we bought it as low as we did is the only reason we even survived. So we're cash flowing pretty well from it. But damn, for like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, it was kind of like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this happen? So that's my body slam.
Yeah, I'm glad it all worked out in the end, man. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
Real estate?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm the train wreck lover, man. But like for the startup stuff, there has been. I've looked, like I said, we go to groups, and there's some stuff where like, man, that presentation was slick, but you just don't do it. We just listened to one for a new Bitcoin mining facility last week, actually, and it was like, man, it sounds like if this happens, it's going to be lucrative, but at the same time, like there's a lot of moving pieces to make this happen, and I don't know that I want to sit around and wait for it to happen. So I came off I didn't Jimmy Superfly Snook at that one. I went more along the lines of a ground-based guy like, I guess, Ric Flair.
Yeah, that's smart though. You got to, like you said, you go with your gut, right? But your gut a lot of times tells you a lot. I feel like, I think it's, there's a lot to be said with what you feel and how you feel about certain deals of certain businesses, right? It's instinctual, I think, right? We going back to the caveman, right? You got to you have to sense fear, to sense stuff that would hurt you. So I think there's a lot to be said about following your gut.
Yeah, when we were studying for the NBE, which is part of the bar exam, they harped, your first instinct's probably your best instinct. So I've always tried to use that. If it works on multiple choice tests, certainly it's going to work on multi-million-dollar investments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, this has been really interesting. I appreciate you making the time, man. Like, I know you're a busy family man and everything like that. But before we go, plug everything that you have, your podcast, where people can find you, if anyone wants to reach out to you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so my podcast is Side Hustle City. It's more of an entrepreneurial, it actually is just an entrepreneurial podcast. We have a lot of investors. We would love to have a lot of investors. Give me your money. No, we have a lot of guests from different walks of life. Barry was on a couple of weeks ago. This week we're going to drop one on Sunday with a guy that is the head of a headhunter company, and he'd spoken with all these different clients, and he found all their pain points. So they created a side hustle where they are now doing education for potential, business leaders that that address these pain points that these companies were having finding qualified executive employees. And that's been fun. I'm co-owner of Sparring Capital. You can just go to sparringrealty.com/capital, and you'll find us there, SPAREN. And then just direct email. The one I'm always on is just my Gmail account, and that's Stevie Properties LLC. That's STEVIE Properties LLC at gmail.com. And then outside of that, I mean, I always have my phone on me too, so I won't give my phone number out on the podcast. But if you email me and you need to talk to me, I don't know what kind of contribution I'm going to give you to your life, but I'll contribute what I can.
The train wreck, that's what you're going to contribute.
The train wreck sounds like an Urban Dictionary, like something from Urban Dictionary. You know what Urban Dictionary is?
Yeah. It's like slang, right? Like on the street. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for making the time, man. I really appreciate it. And stay warm up there in Covington.
Yeah, it's going to be in the 50s next week. We'll be good.
Come to Vegas, man. It's nice and warm here.
I did Vegas one time. If I do go back, I got to find my liver. I think I left it at the Flamingo somewhere.
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a great night.